Lolita is a Japanese fashion inspired by Victorian-era children's clothing and styles from the Rococo period. It grew from young women's desire to dress for themselves in a way that disregarded men's opinions. The style is characterized by a distinctive silhouette, achieved from wearing petticoats underneath dresses or skirts with a specific cut. Decoration associated with girls' clothing, such as lace, bows, and ruffles, are a mandatory component of the fashion, but there are different substyles that utilize variation on this to create a different aesthetic. The fashion has its roots in the 70s and 80s. Lolita, as we know it, came about in the 1990s, where it was photographed on the streets of Harajuku. I have received a lot of questions from you guys for a while now about Lolita fashion, and since I wanted to present a more well-rounded view on this style, I decided to bring in a friend for an interview, since she's been dressing in Lolita style for a while now. This is my friend Phoebe. She likes Lolita fashion and she knows a lot about it, so I decided to ask a few questions to get to know more about this style, and also because you guys had a lot of questions and I don't know anything about it, okay? What's the difference between Lolita fashion and Harajuku fashion?
So Harajuku is actually the name of a street district in Japan. It's in Tokyo, so you can't really describe Harajuku or classify Harajuku fashion as only one type of style. It's basically where all of these people gathered as a community and where they communicated with each other about all these different styles like back then. So Lolita fashion is one of those styles that's originated from that district. Lolita fashion is a type of fashion inside of Harajuku fashion.
So it is a Harajuku fashion, but it's just there are many types of those. What were your initial inspirations that made you start dressing in a Lolita fashion? Maybe specific Lolita models or characters or otherwise?
I remember back in high school or middle school, I watched this Japanese movie called Kamikaze Girls, and it was basically this really cute movie about a girl who was obsessed with Lolita fashion, and she always dressed in Lolita fashion while everybody around her judged her, and her friendship with this other girl who was dressed in a style called Yankee, and they became like best friends. And that movie inspired me a lot because the girl was wearing the old school style Baby the Stars Shine Bright, that's a brand by the way, dresses, and I was just fascinated because it was so cute, it was so frilly, and it was just a style that I would want to see myself dressed in. So I guess when I was introduced to Lolita fashion, and that movie made me really decide to try this fashion out. Other inspirations, Nana.
Of course.
Misa, she was this very cute character in Nana, and her other anime or manga, Paradise Kiss. Like there are a lot of
Paradise Kiss too.
Lolita elements in that one too. So yeah, I guess those are the main inspirations for me.
What types of Lolita fashion are your favorite, and what types are like the most popular in general, I guess, like the ones that you would see more often?
I feel like I really like sweet Lolita and gothic Lolita, which are like the two major categories or like styles of Lolita fashion. Those are like on very opposite ends of the spectrum, because gothic Lolita, like you can imagine, is basically like really dark elements, but sweet Lolita is something like what I'm wearing right now. It's very pastel colors, it's very cute, it's just sweet. My wardrobe consists of mainly those two types of style, and Lolita fashion has so many sub-styles. There are so many, like I can't even count, but I feel like the main ones are sweet, classic, and gothic.
There was a lot of questions about how difficult it is, or like the difficulties of wearing this style just in general in day-to-day life, because most people dress very plainly, especially because you wore this style also, I guess, in Vancouver at some points too, and Vancouver is a very casual city to the point where everybody's wearing Lululemon or some shit like that, so we stand out a lot when we just come out outside. There's a lot of questions from people about that specifically. So the first one is, did you wear Lolita to do things like going grocery shopping or going to the gym?
Not so much about the gym, because I think this is not very suitable for exercising, but definitely the grocery store part, because back then, especially when I was wearing Lolita fashion a lot, I wore it every single day. It was my daily attire. So, of course, I wore it to school, I wore it to different occasions, including grocery shopping.
Did you see anybody in the city wearing Lolita or anything like that too? Or were you always the only one?
I feel like I was the only one. I mean, especially in Vancouver, this is such a
Yeah.
difficult to find style. Like,
It's just hippies, just sporty people, hippies, and people who like to hike, and smoke weed. That's kind of the the type of people that live here. So they don't really care for dressing up in general, let alone dressing up in very specific styles. Like, did you ever wear Lolita style in New York?
yes, I did. Actually, I've seen some Lolitas in New York before, which made me really happy. Because obviously New York, first of all, there are a lot more people in New York City, so there are higher of people
Yeah.
wearing styles like this. And actually, one of my favorite stores, Baby the Stars Shine Bright, actually had a store in New York, but it closed.
Oh wow, really? They had a store? Did they close it or
Yeah,
something, or are they still?
it closed a few,
Oh.
which was really sad. But
I just imagine it to be a sensory nightmare. Did you sometimes feel that way? Because they're artistic and they think that like all the layers, just imagining it, peeling it all away feels very overwhelming to them. Which, even though I'm not autistic, I still like, if I think about like, all the layers, sometimes I also feel like that would be a little bit overwhelming, especially in day-to-day life. How do you feel about that?
yeah, I actually, for me, Lolita dressing in Lolita fashion is actually very comforting. Even though there are a lot of layers, most Lolita dresses, I don't know if you noticed, like they're not like very tight and formed to your body. So it's always like so poofy and frilly and cute that back then, being like an insecure little girl, I felt like that being inside of all these layers, it made me have this warm and fuzzy feeling inside my heart. I don't know how to describe it, but I just felt more safe. I actually think it's pretty comfortable because nothing is restraining me. Like these are all pretty like loose.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess maybe what is uncomfortable if they were wearing that structure under the skirt, right? Like that would be
That
maybe
would be, but
restricting.
also most of the time you don't wear that type of full set to like daily, like you don't do that as a daily outfit. So normally you have soft petticoat under the dress, which is warm, just warm.
Another question was, how did you get over the fear of other people's opinions and become confident enough to wear Lolita outfits in public?
I actually, in the beginning, I was scared too, but in the end, I think one of the main reasons is that I just really, really loved the fashion. I really liked the style. That I loved it so much that I really didn't care about what people thought of. Also, I always feel like you really need to persuade yourself before you try to persuade other people around you, because in the end, you're dressing this way for yourself, not for others. So I guess I told myself that, and I wasn't scared anymore.
I think that for many people, even dressing up in things that they might even really want to wear, it might not even be something as different from everyday casual clothing of like our society, but they still could feel uncomfortable wearing that. And I think that, yeah, maybe thinking about the fact that you are dressing for yourself and focusing on that might help a little. But I think that it is also maybe practice.
Yeah.
Like the more you do it, the less you feel like it bothers you that if people, for example, are reacting or something like that. One thing they want to know is, what's the best way to dress Lolita in a more casual way?
Start with a piece that you can match with like a regular piece that you wear every day. So right now I'm wearing a JSK, which is a jump skirt. And when I'm wearing this, like normally you have a blouse underneath this, and when you wear a blouse underneath this, you're basically just a full-on Lolita. But if you get like a blouse and a skirt, that's more casual. And also there is actually a sub-style called casual Lolita, where it's a lot toned down, but it still has the elements of the Lolita style. So I think if you want to dress it casual, you can check out that style.
The next question is, are Lolitas scared to be seen in a weird way? Not only as a fashion statement, but some creeps can have a sexual connotation. How do you deal with that? I find Lolita fashion so cute, but I think you have to be young to wear it properly. So it's kind of 2 points here. One of them is her saying that I'm afraid that people are going to like fetishize the look. And then the other point is also the fact that they think that you have to be young to wear it properly. So what do you think about both?
First of all, I don't think you need to be young to wear it. I believe that anybody can wear Lolita fashion with confidence at any age. It's just really cute, but it should not be confused with most reactions I've received from people in my own experience are very positive. Like people look at me and they're like, oh yeah, they're curious, they're looking, but most comments I get from people are, oh, what is this dress, or are you cosplaying someone, something like that. They're not trying to harm me. So I personally never encountered anything rude before, but I think my advice is that first to understand that if you're dressing in Lolita fashion, you are in a public place. So is the other stranger who's curious about you. So always be respectful, but also know how to protect yourself. Like if the other person's just curious and wants to ask questions, just explain briefly and leave. But if the person is verbally harassing you, then don't acknowledge it. I hear that. Don't acknowledge it and just leave. And if the person is physically harassing you, call the police.
I think that also it's important to remember that unfortunately, like anything a woman does, there's some kind of weirdo in the world that fetishizes it. You could be just literally sitting there drinking tea, and there's some weirdo in the world that fetishizes it, and like it's literally their specific fetish or whatever. It's gross, but it's at the same time it's like you can't police your life around someone's hypothetical kinks or something like that. You cannot just be always thinking about how they perceive you, and unfortunately it's just how it is with all these men around that think that we owe our time or anything like that to them, or that we exist for their gaze or whatever. So I think that as much as we would like to not be dealing with this, it's also impossible to really police your entire life. Why don't you do it as much anymore?
I think there are few different factors, but since I started doing Lolita fashion back in high school when I was just a teenager, I think it's been a really long time, and I would like to experiment with other styles too. I think that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that I am traveling a lot for school and for other reasons, so I'm traveling back and forth between countries and cities, and it's a little bit difficult to bring everything with you because you have a lot of stuff, like compared to just casual clothing. Those are the two main reasons. It's just I don't do as much as
Because it's a little bit impractical with your like lifestyle currently. Let's talk about how expensive it is and all the money questions that people have. So one of the questions people had was it very expensive to have such a curated wardrobe? Did the majority end up being fast fashion or sustainable designer fashion?
One of the things that I love the most about Lolita fashion is that most pieces you have are the pieces you buy and you keep, not like Zara or H&M fast fashion stuff, because there are a few reasons for that. First of all, not a lot of people dress in Lolita fashion, so they can't mass produce. And the other reason is that because of how complex the designs are, it's really difficult for them to just do it really fast. So all the pieces I have are really high quality, and I really love the Japanese brands, Baby and Angelic Pretty and those brands. I think they are a little bit expensive, but I also think they're worth it because of the design. You can't really buy anything like that with only a little money. But I also know that there are a lot of, especially now, new like indie designers in China that are designing these beautiful, gorgeous dresses with significantly less expensive than compared to Japanese brands. Personally, my wardrobe consists most of Japanese brands, so I say that it is pretty costly to put together a wardrobe like mine.
How do you even start the wardrobe? Like, what do you even purchase first?
I'd say first to determine what style you really want to be doing. For example, if you are really interested in sweet Lolita, then you want to be looking for pieces that really match each other. I'd say start with your first chord, which is, how do you explain this? It's a chord coordination of items that will look really nice. Start with something like main piece, like a jumper skirt or just a one piece or like a skirt that's like the center of attention. And then start with stuff that will complement it, like headpiece. A lot of like these dresses have like head dresses that match the piece. And also shoes and socks and blouse, I think, to complete your first outfit.
So focus on one outfit
Yeah.
first and then determine later like what you want to expand. Is it worth it to buy clothing directly from Japan?
I think it is, because that's actually one of the most reliable way to buy Lolita fashion. You can place the order on a Japanese website and they will deliver it to you, and that's how you will actually save the most money, because there are a lot of like resellers online right now, but they're like really charging you more because they're saving you the process of doing all this thing by yourself, like where you have to go to a website by yourself and kind of like translate everything, pre-order or just wait. I personally do everything by myself. Like, I don't trust resellers. It's not that difficult. Yeah, everything's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to like translate the website, like maybe use like Google Chrome or something
Yeah,
like that, and
sometimes
like have to do that?
I can understand a little bit of Japanese, so it's not difficult for me to really browse the website. But if I really can't understand, there are like, you know, like the Google Translate extension, like where it automatically translates the entire websites for you. Yeah, that most of the time will just work.
So it's common that their websites don't have an English version,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk about Lolita gatekeeping. Were you discouraged by the gatekeeping or strictness in the community, or was it part of the appeal?
I think it wasn't actually a big factor for me per se. I really never really thought about that aspect of Lolita fashion. I just like dressing this way because I like doing it myself and I'm not dressing it for other people. I am proud to be a member of the community, but I don't involve myself a lot with all the drama in that community. I do know there are a lot of like toxic things going on in communities like worldwide. I don't really pay attention to that.
That makes sense. I mean, I feel like every community, and there's a community around like most things in the world, I think that all of them get a little bit toxic at some point, especially if there's enough people following it, right? There's always going to be some people who are approaching it in a really weird, gatekeepy way. Let's talk about Lolita today and in the future. Do you think that Lolita fashion is dying or declining in popularity in the West? But if you know something about Lolita in the East, specifically Japan, that as well? Or is Lolita still thriving as a niche fashion style that won't be dying anytime soon?
This is like slightly complicated, but I can say that Lolita right now in Japan is not as popular as it was before, because I know that some Lolita magazines just in stores, like brands, just closed down, and it's very sad. But also at the same time, a lot of people around the world are learning about this fashion, and I'm very optimistic. I believe that right now, especially like nowadays with the society that accepts more self-expression, just difference, I think that this style will thrive. Not necessarily thrive, but it will definitely not die, is what I'm saying. Because now a lot of people know about this. Back then, when it first started, it was just very popular in Japan. But now everybody around the world are learning more about it.
And also, I mean, right now I feel like everything is so decentralized in terms of what is popular, mostly because of how quick the trends became, to the point where I feel like nothing is popular and everything is at the same time. So I don't think that one single style is going to be really big anymore for a long time. I feel like it's more gonna be about single pieces that get kind of viral or whatever. And they won't last for long either. They will be like popular for like a week and then they will go away or whatever. Just based on like what's what I'm seeing right now. I actually want to make a video about this, about how there's no one major style that takes over the popular culture anymore, I feel like. But in any case, thank you for answering our questions. We'll be making a podcast episode after this. So when you're gonna see this video, there's gonna be a podcast available where we go in more detail and more like questions that are a little bit specific, and some of them a little bit more personal rather than general, about Lolita style and Nana and like inspirations from there and stuff like that. So if you want to check it out, you can go and check it out in the description, or there's probably gonna be a pop-up somewhere on the screen. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Bye!
Bye! There are a few people who joined the party: Kirsten, Jemmy, and Yasmin Fragomeni. I hope I'm pronouncing everything right. I'll see you next time.